www.TheExceptionalConservativeShow.com.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Exceptional Conservative Show, live from the nation's capital. You're watching us on In It Live TV or at TheExceptionalConservativeShow.com. Thank you so much. We have a tremendous special guest with us tonight. He is the author of a great book, Switched On, The Heart and Mind of a Special Agent. Eric Caron is with us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, this man has done the dirty work to keep America safe, and now he's being told by Chucky Schumer and Nancy Pelosi that guys like him are not needed, and we don't need a wall, and we don't need any of those particular things. Sir, your government was working against you and proclaiming that they don't need you, and that you are a detriment to the American people. If we would just get rid of ICE, if we would just get rid of special agents like you, we wouldn't have an immigration problem. Can you tell them in proof exactly how deliberate and destructive that really is?
Kenneth, thank you so much again for having me. You know, it's such an important topic. You know, I was telling you earlier about the immigration raid on a U.S. defense contractor that I led, and my website from the Carnegie Corporation case study on how the Massachusetts Immigration Advocacy Group retooled its communication strategy against the men and women of law enforcement, and how they colluded with the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Boston Globe to demonize me. I could understand the threats I was getting and the men and women of ICE were getting from MS-13 at the time.
Yeah.
But I could not understand how, you know, Senator Kennedy, who basically in the 60s, you know, developed and helped enact our immigration policy and laws, were all of a sudden turning the table on us. And in you know, this document that you have, Ken, in front of you,
and
I have, that basically says, you know, how they, you know, how this immigration advocacy group, you know, turned the tables on men and women in law enforcement, and the press colluded with them. And, you know, part of the, you know, one of the highlights of the case, not the case, but the press that was being manipulated, was they ran stories that we ripped babies from mothers' breasts.
Yes.
And the dehydrated babies were forced to be rushed to the hospital. Guess what? There were no such babies.
You know, the W.C. Fields used to say that bad news is good news because at least I'm talked about. Bad news when it comes to individuals like yourself is that we don't do what's necessary for the safety of our nation. A lot of people have this idea that you guys are out there and you're separating children from their parents, that you know that you're responsible for children dying, not feeding them, not clothing them, giving them a concrete bed to lay upon, that you all are just the most evil guys. And actually, if it were not for you all, some of those individuals wouldn't make it long enough to register to vote illegally in a country. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we did everything by the book in this particular operation in 2007. It was a well thought out and methodical operation from day one, and we, quote, a wicked, as we say in Boston, a wicked good investigation, a wicked good raid. But then the politicians and the liberal media called it a wicked bad operation.
Exactly.
And they kept.
If I could, there was a mirrors communication strategy, and when you all are reading this, if you go to page 11, you will see it. And so there's a snapshot of this. This is the left working every single day against the men and women who protect our country. The number one thing they did, the message was consistent and prepped from day to day. Key community leaders were identified as spokespeople and kept in communication with the organization day and night. The media were provided a range of readily available, knowledgeable speakers to interview, propagandists virtually. Different angles to the story were always being created and anticipated. Each day, the media plan for the next day was anticipated and outlined, and as a result, the media came to see the organization as a credible source, not
Yeah,
not Eric Caron, but the propagandist as a credible source.
that's right.
Doesn't that hurt?
It does. I mean, the Washington Post, God, we used to hold the Washington Post in such a high esteem, right?
Yeah.
The Washington Post, and I have it in my book. The Washington Post ran an article based on based on the Massachusetts Immigration, Refugee Advocacy Coalition information that they received. They ran it single source and never checked with us. And so what happened, Ken, and this is documented, the editor apologized.
Really?
And the ombudsman apologized and said that was wrong. We should never ran that article.
Wow. So you have the media against you. You have they call it immigration, but it's illegal migration. Am I correct in terms of the definition here?
Yes.
If you're not immigrating, then you're not doing it legal. Pro,
Yeah.
They are pro illegal migration. They got the media in their hand, and they're telling all these particular stories. And now, ICE is being threatened by the purse strings of Nancy Pelosi that they might be eradicated. How important is ICE to the immigration process, and what can we expect going forward with ICE under this administration?
Ken, let me just say a few things. One, border security is national security.
Yes.
Period. I say that in my book, and the president's been saying it for the last 6 months to a year. We have to understand that our government failed on 9/11.
Okay.
It failed you and I. It allowed terrorists to come into America, and it allowed terrorists to stay in America to operate when they should never have been allowed to enter, when they were, in fact, overstays. They overstayed their visas, a couple of them. They should have been deported. It would have prevented probably the acts. And this president's determined not to ever allow such an event like 9/11 ever happen again in America.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand that the threat from transnational crime, criminal groups, and from terrorists are real, not just made up.
Yeah.
And the liberal politicians are playing Russian roulette with your safety and my safety. And you know what's going to happen if it's not really, well, if a terrorist act is going to happen here in America, it's when. But when it happens, the first people who will be calling for congressional investigations and want their face on the 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock news will be Nancy Pelosi. How did this happen? We are going to hold investigations to determine how did we allow this to happen. Well, we allowed this to happen because our liberal politicians are not supporting men and women of law enforcement. And the president's number one priority is to keep America safe. And he recognizes that because without safety,
yes,
we will not have a country that prospers. And Venezuela and Mexico is experiencing that. So safety has to be your number one priority, Ken.
Gotta ask you tonight, Eric Caron, switched on. What does it mean to be switched on? I mean, is this
Yeah.
a newfangled expression in the criminal world, or what?
No, Ken, thanks for that question. I'd learned that. Let me just basically, every good house has a foundation.
Yeah.
Right. And the foundation of switched on, I learned from my dad, who was a shoe shine boy in the 1940s, who went on and joined the Marine Corps, who went on and became a police officer and had 7 children, and I'm one of 7.
Wow.
And that shoe shine boy taught me everything I needed to learn in life at a very young age. And the 3 core principles of being switched on that will help you and I make decisions even in darkness. It will help you see where you are going in life if you're switched on, even in darkness. And these 3 core principles are strengthen the mind through education. It's your ticket to life's party. Without it, you're not getting in, period. It's number 1. Number 2, strengthen the soul through faith. Because without it, it's going to be difficult to operate, because there's going to be some challenging days of our lives. So strengthen the soul through faith. And number 3, strengthen the body through eat, sleep, and exercise. The C philosophy, I call it in the book. Those are the core principles of being switched on, and everything else stems from being switched on, from those core principles. And it helps you see where you're going in life. And so I talk about, how to identify problems and threats in your life.
Yeah.
I talk about how to avoid those problems and threats. And I talk about how to escape those problems in life. And, it being switched on for me helped me in those dark days of my life, when I was being, persecuted by Senator Kennedy and Kerry.
Yeah.
And I needed that strength to pick myself up, off the ground. I suffered from PTSD, like many women and men of law enforcement, day in and day out, to put a badge on and gun. And, they see the evils of the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Caron with us tonight. And if you're not already ordering via Amazon, you need to go to his website, switchedonlife.com, switchedonlife.com, and so that you can be switched on for life, ladies and gentlemen. It is a moment by moment thing. Am I correct?
Yeah, it is a moment by moment. You train the mind, the body will follow.
Yeah. There are politicians that need their minds to be changed and trained. On the left, we're talking, the undercover conversation is that Donald Trump asked for $5.7 billion. The government was shut down by the Democrats. Donald Trump was blamed, and now that's reopened in order to not shut it down again on Friday. They're talking 1.7, maybe $2.3 billion of support here. First and foremost, if you would, as a national security person, please tell us why $5.7 billion is necessary and how trifling it is for our Congress to even quibble over this. And then secondly, as an American citizen, why should we be supportive of Donald Trump and the options he has in terms of the wall?
Ken, thanks again for having me. The president, very much like I saw pretty much daily, especially when I operated overseas, I would see intelligence every day about the threat that is here in America or coming to America.
Mm-hmm.
And so he sees the intelligence around the world that says, we are coming and we are going to destroy you. There's a war going on. I mean, there's a war in many areas right now.
Yeah.
War on terror, war with international criminals such as MS-13 and other narco-terrorist groups that are operating out there. And there's a war going on, although it's undeclared, with Iran. The Iranian government has essentially declared war against Israel and America. And, you know, we need to wake up. And the president understands that threat. And so the wall is important because it acts as a deterrent for some, not all.
Mm-hmm.
And it, you know, quite frankly, it may prevent some bad guys from entering. Because, hey, bad guys don't want to get caught. At the local level, or the national level. Bad guys are smart. They're you know, shucking and driving, man. They're going someplace where the cops aren't.
Exactly.
And same thing with the wall.
I got to ask you very quickly because we got about 30 seconds here. But the biggest problem is not MS-13, although they are a national security risk in their own right. There are people from Palestine. There are people from Afghanistan. There are people from China, communists coming through that open border. What's the worst that could possibly happen, and what can Americans do to prevent that?
Well, elections matter. I saw that firsthand. Elections matter. Because when I was involved in this operation in Massachusetts, Governor, you know, Romney was the governor at the time, and his administration was fully supportive. And when Deval Patrick took over, he instructed the state police, you can escort them, but do not take a foot and assist them in a search warrant and arrests.
Wow.
And so elections matter, and you're right. We know that special interest aliens from the Middle East are coming through and have come through the southern border. And we know for a fact, Ken, that terrorist organizations are recruiting folks from Central and South America to be part of their organization.
So those individuals, and we've been talking about, there were rumors that 100,000 people were leaving Venezuela to come north. They're not coming north to register to be Republicans, are they? No, they're coming to do hurt, harm, and danger. What can the American people do besides buy your book, which they should do first, buy your book, and then secondly, what should they do?
You know, stay informed, read, educate yourselves. Don't just single source. Don't just pick up the Washington Post or the New York Times. Educate yourselves, and get involved. Get involved because it matters. It matters at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. Get involved, and let it be known that you care about this country.
Yes.
Because the Romans thought that, hey, this country is forever going to last. And we have to understand that today we are a great country. But the president said it right the other night about keep America safe and keep America strong. And 10 years from now, if we're not careful, we could end up like a Mexico where there's 40,000 body bags in a single year.
Thank you. Eric Caron, ladies and gentlemen, making it absolutely clear the risk and the reward if we build or not build the wall. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Caron has a great book. You need to go get it now. You can go to his website, Switched on Life. It's SWITCHEDONLIFE.com. Get there, get the book, buy it now, read it, and then go out and educate others, not only about the attacks that are going on against our police forces and our criminal protectors, but against ICE and other agencies that are doing good to protect us from the illegal aliens that would not. Eric Caron, God bless you, and thank you so much for being on. And I look forward to you coming on very soon again.
Thank you, sir, for having me, and I look forward to seeing you at CPAC.
All right. Eric Caron, ladies and gentlemen, looking forward to a great conversation at CPAC with him again. Listen, we got to go to commercial break. I know I went